Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at lots of things. This is another fragment session. We haven't done one of these for a little while. And we are clearing out, I say fragments, it's fragments and short things. We're doing some short things as well today. So we are doing the last fragments that I know of from the 16th century. We are pretty much done with the 16th century after this in terms of original play texts. Some of these are sort of borderline pageant material. Some of these are borderline how performative they are. They're all a bit borderline because they're fragments, so we don't really have much context. But yeah, this is part of the great tidy up operation of we say we're going to do everything. We're going to do everything, even if it's very, very small. So doing some teeny weeny things today, reading various things, including Gismond, Second Senator, Bagous Boy, Gluttony, Alexander, all sorts of things, is...
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm a short thing, and all these things describe me.
Reading a prologue, Sloth, Pride, Julius Caesar, and Arthur is...
Hi, it's Tom from Brighton.
Reading another senator, Aldeboran, Godfrey, Bessie, Lechery, and Roth is...
Liza Graham, Lechery, and Roth. 2 for 1.
Yay! And finally reading Larymos, Envy, all 7 of the 7 deadly sins, Wife, Charles, all the things is...
Hi, I'm Desna from Lancaster.
And I'm your host, Robert Crichton. I will be reading just stuff in between, occasional stage directions as and when they appear. So we are going to start with the 7 deadly sins. So this is a thing. It might be a pageant. It might be... we don't really know. It appears in an archdeacon's visitation book. It possibly dates from the late 1540s, maybe the early 1550s. We don't really know. But it's it's 7 deadly sins doing some sedley deadlying. Sedley deadlying, yes. So, yes, if you've got Eric, your covetousness and gluttony. Tom, you're going to be pride and sloth. Desna, you're going to be envy and all the 7 deadly sins. And Liza, you will be wrath and lechery. There's at least 4 lines where it's not entirely clear who's saying it. It could be passing the baton back to envy. So whoever's reading envy, when it says still envy, try that, because I don't know, because it could be wrath. It could be anyone. I'm not sure how that bit works. But anyway, here are some 7 deadly sins doing some sedley deadly things. Yeah, I'm going to stop trying to do words now. So, starting with pride, let's hear.
O mortal man, blind in pomp and pride, in vain glory abusing, thou dost disguise. High in thy mind so fixed it doth abide, consider how Lucifer, an angel, was of pride, and for that sin from the heavenly paradise fell down into hell, and bringing in that flaming heat. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O mortal man, corrupt with miserable envy, by serpentine malice, and as Cain in resemblance that slew Abel, his brother, how can thou deny, and so commit homicide to his great grievance? To God that was displeased, and cried vengeance, for his sacrifice to death cruelly did him beat. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O mortal man, fretting with impatient ire, from justice declining and dulled in thy reason, as a tyrant perturbate, a spark of Etna fire, that Bren himself not consuming in season, like the wild boar foaming that eat beans or peason, devouring beasts innocent as sheep, lamb, or geat. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O Lord of all, God eternal, for grace I call, that I never fall in sin mortal, that when we shall from this world pass, God send us grace of our trespass, to have release and to purchase in heaven a place.
O mortal man, in covetous never satiate, thy God is thy treasure, silver or gold, gotten by ravening to maintain thine estate by extortion or oppression, the good, the poor, the young and old. Semblable to Judas that his master sold, most wicked merchant that in hell doth sweat. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O mortal man, thou slug in all virtuous deeds, compared to the ass that keeps but one pace, oblivious of thy God, omitting that needs, loath to penance of God, service that has not compass, void of all merits and barren of all grace, for in devotion with death, man, thou pleat. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O mortal man, and foul, filthy, great glutton, by excess inordinate, defiling thy nature, foaming, insensitive, and of sour corruption in drunkship wallowest, the gore pit sure of stygial stink, there thou shalt endure. Thy cankered rust so doth fate. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O mortal man, infamied with vile lechery, two souls in one body infect with pestilence, Sodom and Gomorrah with other cities wretchedly, as hellhounds they sank in their concupiscence. Conceive their pleasure in sulphur with displeasance, now bathing their carrion, their bones do fret. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
O mortal man, drowned in these sins 7, whither will thou fly, the sins be so damnable? Expulsed thou art from the bliss of heaven, from the glory of the Godhead that is so delectable. Repent and despair not, his mercy is comprehensible to contrite hearts that for their miss will greet. Remember thee, O man, thou art but worm's meat.
So that's cheered us all up to start with. That repeated refrain. We have got a variant line. So we've got, as hellhounds they sank in their concupiscence, or alternatively fell down into hell in their concupiscence. So we've got a textual variant that we can play with. 2 alternative lines, and the bit we were saying was still envy. Question mark. It feels like it's just it's a man replying to all these surrounded 7 deadly sins, being, please let me be saved, please let me be saved, kind of thing. We've encountered the 7 deadly sins elsewhere in lots of other texts. But this is an interesting little thing. I don't know what it's part of. Is it a thing all of its own right? I don't know. There's a reference here I see of Prologue, so maybe that 4-line bit should actually live at the top of the text, and maybe that's out of place, and that starts it off.
Do we know anything about the regional origin of this text?
Yes, it is from Norwich, or at least that's what it comes from. It comes from the Norwich Archdeaconry Visitation Book, close to records of the visitation of 3 different parishes. Written down in around April 1548. So that's when it sort of comes into being-ish, they think. So, yeah, that makes sense as, yeah. I don't know what to use it for. I feel like, it'll make a fun little reminder to pop out on the podcast every so often. Hi, are you feeling frisky, hungry? Do you like feelings of owning lots of gold? That kind of thing. Yeah. yeah, so I've tidied up some of the text. I didn't tidy up all of it. In fact, Liza and I had discussions about some bits of this text in the past. Eric.
I was just going to say, it does feel a bit like an infomercial, sort of. In case you missed it this week, this is your daily reminder for, how to go to. Yeah, I was going to say go to hell, but then that doesn't sound very polite. But then, yeah, fun is death.
Yeah. Well, and remember, you are going to die. So just always remember that. You're going to die. That's the sort of message that we're getting there. Again, it's going to be quite difficult for anyone to come up with anything particularly expansive on any of these things. It's the nature of doing the short ones. But any other thoughts on the 7 deadly sins? Anyone got a favourite? Anyone got a favourite 7 deadly sin? No. Okay, I'll move on. Let's go on a few years potentially, to around 1551. We don't again know precisely where many of these things are. And this is a bit of the 9 Worthies. We've encountered some Worthies before in some either Lord Mayor shows or other civic pageantry type situations. I forget precisely where we've mostly come across 9 Worthies, but we've certainly come across some Worthies in some of the other things we've done. And similarly, this will be some sort of vaguely processional kind of thing where you've got some people standing in a tableau, perhaps, being worthy people. So, we've got Eric, you're Alexander the Great and Judas Maccabeus. Tom, you are Julius Caesar and King Arthur. Desna, you get to be Duke Josue and Charles. Is that Charlemagne? I'm not sure. Charles what? No, it's not. It's another Charles. I think. No, it's Charlemagne. Yeah, it's Charlemagne. And Liza, who do you get to be? You get to be David and Godfrey of Boulogne, which actually connects with. I think that connects with the play we're reading this afternoon. So that's always a nice little coincidence. Okay, so we don't know how it's staged. Some of the text is a little damaged and weird. Take it away, the 9 Worthies.
I am Alexander that conquered the paradise gate, saved the ill of women, all the world I won. Then send me a chair of gold, the lady of estate and witness of Aristotle that dwelled with me then.
I am Julius Caesar, that hight emperor. In frith and in field I bear ever the fame. In Rome and in Romans I bear the flower. Caput mundi, I was called by my name.
I am Josue Gen, grow in wise, as fierce in field as flame all of fire. To recover all that rout I was chosen honest, by the scent of Sayer that then was my sire.
I am David that was dread, in dreed and in doom. I made the Psalter book for my great sins. A score wives and concubines had I at my will, and yet I was chosen for chief of the war.
I am Judas Maccabeus that never was afeard of Jew ne jury in certain. I won Portingale, Spain and Almain, and yet hath Morgan me cowardly slain.
I am Arthur of England, that conquest Wales and Scotland. I slow the giant Morbaids with my sword Colbrand, and yet live I, Arthur, in another land.
I am Charles the chief chosen in war. God granted me by grace the fair fleur de luce, and by an angel sendeth me down from heaven tower. Perfectly it was portrayed in plain paradise.
I am Godfrey of Boulogne, that in battle was bold. King of Jerusalem, I wore the crown of thorn. Methought it was better mickle than any crown of gold, for the love of the Lord that in Bethlehem was born.
And then we have a list of the people in the pageant, including Hector, who is absent, because you may have noticed we've only done 8. So it is a slightly lopped off 9 worthies. I suspect Godfrey of Bullen is going to turn out to be one of the characters in play we're doing this afternoon. I'm going to double check that later. Of course, when you're watching this video, goodness only knows where it connects with whatever we're recording this afternoon, which is why I'm not actually mentioning that at all. That went well. Josue, gent grown in wise, I think might be something where that's going.
I think it's general.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be general.
We have a few gaps, which is what we're discussing here. But grown in wisdom, wise must be what sort of where that's going, isn't it?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
it's got to rhyme with on eyes, as it were.
No, that's once. I was chosen once.
Yeah, but in terms of the way it might be, I'm just wondering about how it might flow. Once, wise. Anyway.
Desna?
How would honest once have been pronounced at the time? Because obviously I'm reading it not 100% knowing what its original pronunciation was.
Yes, that's what I was sort of leaning into. Liza.
Well, it's hard to say. Honest, maybe.
Well, that's I say why I was thinking it probably rhymes with wise. It's almost like wise, but not quite wise. That's that thing of words
I don't know. I mean, if it was a Y that made a Y sound, I would expect to see an E after the Y, maybe, or something.
There is a E after the Y.
In the original?
Yeah, we're looking at it now.
Oh, I meant in once, in honest.
Oh, well, I don't think that it's different that way, but, you know.
Yeah, I mean, anyway, it will be interesting to see.
But yes, unfortunately, we don't know. But that's probably how I'd do it if we were doing it as a recording now. But it means once. I mean, it definitely means once, whatever the way we decide to pronounce it. It's just whether we can make it work with whatever wise is.
Do you want to know what the Latin means? I mean, you know what the Latin means.
You can say it. Which Latin? I don't know where it is.
The Latin bit at the bottom, which I think is marginalia, or anyway, it was. It lists the worthies by their religion. We have 3 pagans: Hector, Alexander, and Julius Caesar. 3 Christians: Arthur, and Charles, and Godfrey. And 3 Jews: Joshua, David, and Judas Maccabeus.
Yes. So Charles is, Charlemagne, I think, is where we're going with that one. Right. Any other thoughts about these 9 worthies? They're standing there, but they're being worthy. They're saying things, as it were, about why they're worthy. No, nobody's got anything else. I know, it's always difficult with these. They're all so short. Okay, we will go on to something with a bit more meat to it. Just a teensy-weensy bit more meat. This is a slightly more sustained fragment of dialogue. So this is Aegio, potentially by a chap called William Alley, from 1560 odd. It might be by him. He might, however, have used it. It's part of a very lengthy book. Making in this area some theological points, and this is used as an example to make a decision of what, or just to make an example of the theological point he's making in the wider section of the book. So he may have written it, or he may have just nabbed it from somebody else because it was very apposite to his point about theology. And we can infer that it is part of a play, but we don't have all of it. But it's an interesting little dialogue. So here we have, who do we have? Desna reading Larymos, and Liza reading Phronimos. So the names of the interlocutors be Larymos and Phronimos.
None of you all can destiny deny, for all things do chance by mere necessity, that will I prove by sufficient authority, both of astronomy and also divinity. And first to begin with God's own book, God doth all things foresee and forelook, and that thing which he doth once foresee must needs be so, and can none otherwise be. Man is also ruled by the constellation of the bodies above after Ptolemy's relation. Of Lucanus also this is the sentence, that man is ruled by destiny's violence. Precepts agit omnia fatum, and beside the doctrine of all the astronomers, it is also the mind of poets and philosophers. Quod regitur fatis mortali genus, et venit ab alto, qui quid facimus. To be short, and to avoid prolixity, now shall you hear a doctor of divinity. Austin, in his book of the Heavenly City, writeth these words of fatal destiny. Destiny, saith he, is a certain disposition of causes, and is also an order and a production of things them either to prosper or else to spill, besides God's purpose and beside man's will.
The wicked doctrine of fatal necessity I will prove to be a detestable heresy. If man by the course of bodies above from sin himself could not leave nor remove, and if one should be a thief by fatal necessity, then we must needs reason and contend that the creatures of God are not all good, contrary to the Apostle Paul's relation, which all creatures to be good made declaration. And by this doctrine it should follow then that there could be no sin committed by man, for that which is evil is done always by man's free will, as the divines do say. And by the suggestion of the wicked fiend et per fomitem peccati that is in man's mind, and by the doctrine of the Stoics' necessity, God to himself should be clean contrary. For if he bid us to do good and enforce us to do ill, who then his commandments is able to fulfill? Of this also should ensue a damnable clause, that God of all ill should be the original cause. It followeth also by this heathenish necessity, that all transgressors are punished unjustly. For you cannot say that to be ill done, which a man by no means is able to shun. Out of this also it doth follow and fall, that in vain are made the sciences all, as geometry, physic, and moral philosophy, arithmetic, music, and also divinity. For what shall we need to teach and exhort, or the sick to help with medicine's comfort? What shall it avail to rebuke any sin, or to repentance by preaching any man to win? What shall it boot to fast and to pray, or any good thing to do or say? If all things by destiny should chance and fall, marry, it forceth not then what we do at all. And to be plain, if this doctrine should be known, the whole life of man should be quite overthrown. Ambrose, in his book called Hexameron, doth profoundly condemn this opinion. What need, saith he, any laws to be made, or in a realm any acts to be had to preserve the good in quiet safety, and to punish the ill for their iniquity, if things should chance by mere necessity? Why laboreth the ploughman to sow his corn? Why travaileth the merchant like to be forlorn in the sea? Why do other men take care and pain to obtain to themselves commodity and gain? All occupations and arts are in vain. Thus writeth Ambrose wonderful plain. God forbid, saith Gregory, that any Christian heart should with the opinion of destiny take any part. For none but God which gave the creation doth take of our life the administration. Ptolemy, the prince of the astronomy school, doth say that a wise man the planets may rule. And Bugosaurus, upon the Centiloquy, writeth thus concerning destiny: the effects of the planets a wise man may let by the force of wisdom which in him is set. And Abraham Avenar, an astronomer of Chaldee, doth overthrow this fatal necessity. If to heaven with prayer man lift up his voice, against destiny he shall triumph and rejoice. Authorities against destiny we need no mo, but yet let us bring an example or two. A certain man, beholding Plato's face, did him much dispraise and greatly disgrace, and judged him to be a corrupter of youth, a liar, a dissembler, no teller of truth. To whom Plato answered, making relation that he had overcome the planet's inclination by knowledge, learning, and wise government, and by godly virtues daily entertainment. Jacob and Esau maketh for this matter, as is in Genesis, the 25th chapter. They were two twins, you shall understand, the one holding the other's heel in his hand. Although they were born at 1 hour's instant, yet were their lines very much discrepant. Were not some, said Ambrose, from grace rejected, and into God's favor again elected? Were the apostles redeemed by the force of nativity? Or did the coming of Christ them bless and sanctify? The thief was not saved by destiny's device, but the confession of faith brought him to paradise. What say you to them whom death had devoured, and by the apostles again to life were restored? Did destiny to life restore them again? Nay, it was God by the apostles, as the scriptures sayin'. Now, to make up and knit the conclusion, we have brought destiny to utter confusion, of the which Bardazanes was the first author, and the sect of the Priscillianists was the next fator, which in the council of Tolotan, holden in Spain, the names of heretics for this did sustain. As for the authority which thou broughtest out of Austin, he spake it in the Stoics, and not in his own person.
Now then, I ask you another question, and give me thereof some pithy solution. What say you to the words of Sirach and Amos? I durst lay a noble, I shall you oppose. Both good things and also things ill, the Lord doth appoint them and fulfill. Riches, poverty, life and death, this is the book of Sirach saith. Is there, saith Amos, any ill in a city, but it is the Lord's will? So although you deny destiny, yet grant God to be the author of iniquity.
God save me from that opinion, but now I will answer to thine objection. There be, saith Austin, two kinds of ills which spring of our two contrary wills. Est malum culpae et est malum pene. The ill of sin man's will doth commit, the ill of pain God's hand doth inflict. Not that ill of itself is God's punishment, but so counted of them to whom it is sent. As a child, which is both wanton and wild, doth fear the rod which maketh him mild, although he hate it worse than a serpent, yet is the rod a very good instrument. So the punishment which God doth send to cause the sinful man to amend is counted of the sinner to be very ill, because it liketh nothing his will. And the pain which he doth sustain, he doth much abhor and greatly disdain. But although it be against his lust, yet is God's punishment both good and just. So that of ill, God is a just revenger, and not of sin to be counted an author.
And in the red corner we have free will, and in the blue corner we have predestiny and fight. I weirdly rather enjoyed that. Yeah, we have, I say, this is why it's presumably been selected for inclusion in the Poor Man's Library. Which I say has this is part of a wider sort of examination of theological questions like this. So this has been put in. It feels very of its time, 1560, mid-Tudor type thing. And yeah, flows quite nicely. Liza, you've done some dialogues in your time recently. It does sort of fit within that tradition of that kind of thing. I don't know whether this is genuinely performative or whether this is a part of some sort of printed thing about, using the debate format to discuss a theological point.
Well, I'm relishing the odd moments where they talk like human beings. Like when Larymos says, I durst lay a noble, I shall you oppose. Noble, of course, being a coin of very high value. Larymos is very sure of that.
Isn't there a bit where someone says, I don't need to give any examples, but I'll give you an example now. I don't need to give more examples. But I will. Go on, look, I've got loads. So there is some character here. It's not, you know, I also like God save me from that opinion. There's a bit of character to it as well as the sort of general theological point.
Yeah, I mean, it does the job, which is to take all this quite abstruse theological arguing and put it into terms that someone listening to this could understand if they hadn't necessarily read the books.
And I did feel I was following it. I thought that they made their points quite well. You know, it's a loaded dice, though, isn't it? It's I don't think Larymos has really got anything really to.
No, he's there to be the question asker.
So yeah, any more for any more? I quite like that. We'll record that at some point. That's harmless and mostly harmless. Sometimes you hit theological things and you go, "Oh God, not letting that out of the box." But no, that one came out okay. Okay, next up then, we're going to do a crying Christmas ceremony from Lincoln in 1564. Christmas is coming. It's very important that everyone does what they do for Christmas. There are, as it goes on towards the end, there are more lacunae in the text. It gets a bit fragmentary, so you know, put the gaps in, hope for the best. But yeah, celebrate Christmas properly, people. So 3 senators, 1, 2, and 3, take it away.
The Maker Almighty, the ground of all grace, save this congregation that be here present, and bring them all to the celestial place that with patience will hear the effect of our intent.
Our intent and purpose is ancient customs to declare that have been used in this city many years ago. And now for to break them, we wish ye should beware, for there be grievous punishments for them that will do so.
At the time of Christmas, mirth hath been made throughout all nations of the Christian faith. And still so to keep it, ye need not be afraid, for then was our Saviour born, as the scripture saith.
At that time, said St. John, appeared our perfect light, and the Saviour of all the world that faithfully trust in him. St. Luke in the 2nd chapter declaring his strength and might. Therefore at that time to be merry we wish ye should begin.
The angels with mirth the shepherds did obey, when they sung Gloria in Excelsis in terms mystical. The birds with solemnity sung on every spray, and the beasts for joy made reverence in their stall.
Therefore with a contrite heart let us all be merry, all, having a steadfast faith, and a love most amiable, disdaining no man of power, great or small, for a cruel oppressor is nothing commendable.
Whatsoever oppressor will be cruel and not merry make, shall be sore fettered in a dungeon full deep, wherein is toads and newts with many a great snake. That place is so dark ye shall not see your feet.
Therefore Christmas mirth I would ye should esteem, and to fear God and show ye deeds of charity, both man and wife, or else the people will assemble with weapons sharp and keen. Wherefore it will not prevail to make any strife.
Against that holy time all good people do prepare, as well kings and queens that is of most noble birth, as also dukes, earls, and lords royally will fare, and spend the time of Christmas with joy and mirth.
For so much as all degrees within this realm, for a guess, do highly esteem the time of Christmas. To break that honorable custom, I would none to, but spend the time in hearing and following God's.
That is the chief cause hither we were sent, to give the people warning, to have all things perfectly. For they that do not breaketh master mayor's commandment, and according to the order punished they must be.
Therefore endeavour yourselves to have all things Well, that no default be found neither of rich nor poor, but at the time help your neighbours as St. James did, refreshing the poverty that cometh to the door.
Briefly, we have declared the effect of our mind, and I do not doubt but you will have it in remembrance. One neighbor to another, I wish you should be kind, for the time doth so spend, needs we must go for something.
Here we cannot tarry, the time passeth. This mortal world is but van. O magistrates and rulers, we would ye school us, I'm guessing, walking in your something.
The eternal Lord have something unto other places power upon you. He that all things.
And it peters out and dies. So we lose a lot of the end lines. I really quite like this very much as a way of starting Christmas by going, okay, people, Christmas is a time of merriment. We've got a good biblical reasons why we're allowed to have fun. If you don't have fun, we will torture you with toads and newts.
And everyone will come and hit you with sticks.
Yeah. So have fun or else. I like that, Eric.
It made me think of both aside from the Narcissus play that we discovered last year, which was like that elaborate sort of prologue of that play, and then also it reminded me of I think it was the Masque of Father Christmas or something, or Good Old Christmas, something like that, where like it made me think that you could just, instead of having the lacuna, you could just have like sort of someone interrupting and going, we're here for the mosque, is this where we're holding and then just like jump into that.
Yeah, it's it's part of the Christmas celebrations. It sort of opens the Christmas celebrations. I think it's more open than a court thing. This is part of there's an agreement that you've got to have good cloaks for this ceremony. Apparently, in later years there was some poor cloakage, so there was some payment by the Lincoln equivalent of the county council at the time. Basically said, right, make sure we got some decent things. So this is presumably something they did every year. It's more like turning on the Christmas lights kind of intro, isn't it? It feels like that rather than something good. But that said, I feel like repurposing this for any Christmas show we do. I think this is how you open it. I think we need to write some infills. Some of the lacunae are possibly to figure out what they might be. Some of them we just have to make something up, I think, and sort of figure it out. But yeah, I enjoyed that one. That's a keeper. That's a keeper. I've got a use for that. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a tradition that continued almost to this day, but probably doesn't. Okay. Any other thoughts on this one before we move forward? So I'm trying to look up something for further ahead, and I'm failing to find the reference, which is annoying me. No, can't find it anywhere. Okay. So next up we have Palamon and Arcite Part 2. So this was part of a double performance at Christ Church in Oxford. It was performed before the Queen on the 4th of September 1566. Now, Part 1 didn't go very well. So the building in which this was supposed to be performing, there were so many people came in that it took out a wall and a staircase. And how many people died? 2 or 3. Several people died. 5 were injured. The show went on, by the way. Don't worry, the Queen still got to see Part 1. It went on. She quite enjoyed it, apparently. But some people died for this, just so you know. This is part 2. I think this is either the following day or slightly further in the whenever it happened. And this is all we have of it, sadly. So this is a bit of text that comes out, and it's known as A Lady's Complaint for the Loss of Her Love. So this text comes out of this, this is what we've got. And I think that's Desna.
Come follow me, ye nymphs, whose eyes are never dry. Augment your wailing number now with me, poor Emily. Give place, ye, to my complaints, whose joys are pinched with pains. My love, alas, through foul mishap, most cruel death hath slain. What wight can well, alas, my sorrows now indite? I wail and want my new desire, I lack my new delights. Gush out my trickling tears like mighty floods of rain. My night, alas, through foul mishap, most cruel death hath slain. O hap, alas, most hard, O death, why didst thou so? Why could not I embrace my joy for me that bids such woe? False Fortuno out, alas, woe worth my subtle train, whereby my love through foul mishap, most cruel death hath slain. Rock me asleep in woe, you woeful sisters 3, or cut you off my fatal thread. Dispatch, poor Emily. Why should I live, alas, and linger thus in pain? Farewell, my life, sith that my love, most cruel death hath slain.
And thus ends this particular little lament. I'm wondering if there's more lines that we don't have here. Just sort of going. No, that looks about right. So this is some sort of a song lament thing going on. Liza.
Okay, so we know about Palamon and Arcite from Chaucer's A Knight's Tale, but I'm not sure off the top of my head what Chaucer's source was. I'm sorry, my cat knocked over my pencil case. So at the end of Chaucer's version, spoilers, one of the two knights, Palamon and Arcite, one of them dies. And Emily, she wasn't sure which one of them she loved anyway, so they were going to fight, and one of them was going to die, and she was going to marry the survivor. So this is interesting because this is kind of a departure from Chaucer. She seems to have been in love with one. She seems to have been in love with the one who died.
I know no more. I know no more than this. Eric.
It did remind me a bit of I think it was Common Conditions, where you had like this sort of really comical like main character, and then you had like this sort of really horrid death scene at the end of it for no apparent reason, because it was like, we don't have any more time for this show, we have to kill off the characters now, goodbye. And it was I seem to remember they drank out of a poison cup or something, but that might be, and it's not the tragedy of Tancred and Gismond, which is next. It was a separate poison cup. But yeah, I don't know, that's what this reminded me of, sort of.
It's definitely very lamenty. Sorry, I'm doing looking up things, so I'm sort of I'm only half responding. Other thoughts in the room while I look ahead to things. Speak whenever you feel you would like to speak. So
one thing that I found was slightly jarring for me reading it was that the text itself is lamenty, but the rhythm of it felt quite jolly.
Mm.
And that just felt like a bit of a weird tension. Maybe that's just me.
No.
But I was really, Liza's extra info there with the context about the Knight's Tale was really interesting, and and helped give a bit more context to it. So that was good to know. Thank you.
So yes, yes, it's true. It does seem very much more personal. It's not an impersonal thing about poor knight who's died. La la la. It does seem quite personal, doesn't it? That's an interesting question. I don't know the answer. Sadly, we don't have any more of the text, so we can't. Sadly, say more. So that's it for Palamon and Arcite, and all the dead who came with it. So we're now going to have a very short little fragment of the tragedy of Gismond. I don't think it actually technically has any connection with the other Gismonds that we've done, or not. I mean, it's short, and it's someone being a bit sad face about some things going on. There's various little sections where it suggests that it might go on. There's some bits in square brackets which I'm not sure precisely how they function, whether there's textual variations or whether it's just a room for elaborations that have been inferred. I don't know. So have a play, see what comes out of it. It's the same story, even if it's not necessarily any connection with the other version that we know and love. So Eric, see what you get out of that.
Come tread the paths of pensive pangs with me, ye lovers true. Bewail with me your luckless lots, with tears your eyes bedew. Aid me, you ghosts who loathed life, your lovers being slain. With sighs and sobs and notes of dole, my heart happed to complain. Farewell, my lords and friends, farewell, old princely state. Let Father Heru his rigor shown, the inslaying of my mate. Gicardo, if thy sprite do walk, come draw thy lover nigh. Behold, I yield to thee my ghost. Oh, see, I die. I'm still dying. Sorry, it's hard to keep going for so many dies. I die, alas, I die.
Yes, you do. You die a lot. There's an awful lot of these dies. And I'm not sure how many of them are authentic or not, because I'm slightly... it seems a little excessive, even for the early modern. Definitely dead. So, yeah. Happy stuff. So Gismond is given some sort of lament prior to death. Apparently, I've just noticed this note. There's a musical setting for this. Ooh.
Well, that would explain the repetition of the text at the end.
Mm.
Oh, I wonder. Oh, now what's it called? There's a lament whose tune might almost suit this. Is the music extant? Do we know that?
I believe musical setting survives, according to Wiggins. So
fabulous.
We have music. Okay, right, Liza, that looks like a project for you.
Sounds like a job for Super Liza.
Okay, I will see what we can what we've got and see what we can get out of that. Okay, well that gives us a project, because you never know, it might fit very well with the version of Tancred and Gismond that we've got. It's not completely out of the realms of universe of Tancredness, but it could just be it was a not unknown story for, I'm sure other people do versions of Tancred and Gismond, so yeah. Okay, we're going to move on to something that's a bit chunkier again. We're leaping forward. It took me ages to find out how far forward, because this is where the text is now. The text that we're doing is slightly out of order, because I cocked up. So we're leaping forward to 1607 now, and we're going to look at the stately tragedy containing the ambitious life and death of the Great Cham, the enchantments of Bagous the Brackman with the strange fortunes of Roxan, the captivity, release, and death of his brother Manzor, the Turkish king, and happy fortunes of the Sophie of Persia with the love of Bargandel, his son. So it sounds like it's a Turk play. It does sound a bit like it's from an episode of Star Trek, because there's not a lot of I'm not wholly convincing characters, and we have the opening of the play. We have a prologue, who is Tom. Then we have Aldeboran, who is Liza, and Bagous is Eric. And then Drepona comes on later on in the next scene, and that's Desna. Some of the stage directions are technically, I think, sort of more down the side in places, so I have placed them in a place that will work reasonably well for reading, if that makes sense. So that flows. But they, in the original manuscript, lives in a slightly different place. So, without further ado, I'll ask Tom if you could prologue away, please.
She who doth rule her table books with blood, to write thereon misery, dole, and death, because blood is her patron's livery, commands me use none other ink but red. Yet Venus, putting on her creston, craves that I cross incest and recite same love, which she with Hymnus ratified, and Hecate with frightful visions conjures me to declare here in the West the works of her East India ministers, and how even with tobacco now well known, the Brahman priests delude poor Indians to please the tragic muse and not offend the Phaean empress, nor the queen of hell, of blood, of magic, and of marriage. Gentles, it is my task at once to tell.
Enter Bagous the Brackman and Aldeboran a spirit. The Brackman cometh out alone, but the devil must rise from under the stage in a flash of fire, and he must return in at the door with Brackman, and so ever after till at last.
Fiends of Avernus shall attend on thee and tremble at thine incantations. Thou shalt have power to countermand the fates and to presage of further accidents, to rise Latona's daughter from her sphere and blindfold Phoebus with eternal night, to walk about the world with a wish and dart destruction and deserved death on those who manage with thee, if you plot your intentions with me.
Aldeboran, in recompense of this, the moving spirit by the which I live, which by the powerful architect of heaven was made to rest in never-ending bliss. Even in the paradise at Ganges' head, I give unto the loathsome lakes of hell, to bathe in those hot sulphur-boiling streams, compassing hell 9 times with such fence.
You give me but what was mine own before.
I know not what to give.
I'll ask no more. But coming now to see the mighty Cham, let him not know you for the Sophie's brother, but say you came of late from Calicut. The reason shall hereafter show itself.
And they enter the Great Cham, and named Valras, his wife Drepona, and guard. And he hath a crown borne before him, and a duke's hat, which are set down on a little table.
Depart, and leave us with our thoughts alone. Answer the suitors, we'll give ear to none.
Exeunt the guard.
Finding my lord displeased with the sports which most are used in this citadel, sith other courts are cottages to this, maintained by my lord the mighty Cham, and that the change of sundry choice delights please thee not with their fine variety, but often in apparent actions. You show disturbed tokens of a mind as discontented as a mind may be. I fain would be physician to my lord if he would prove a quiet patient, but yet my skill is only to appease. The patient must tell his own disease. What have our vassals, the Tartarians, besieged or sacked some of our frontier towns? Then with our army far more great than that, which Xerxes, having drunk whole rivers dry, waste all Tartaria to the northern seas,
And indeed, for that is all the text we get. So, yes, we've got a beginning of a Turk play. We've got the Great Cham, the Great Khan, perhaps is a better modernisation. And we've got someone bringing up a spirit. It's around 1607-ish, according to Wiggins. It's got a dating range here from 1599 through to 1642. So it could live anywhere in a 43-year period. So yeah, it's doing some quite, in theory, spectacular things. We've got that almost convention of massive entrance with lots and lots and lots of people, and then they all immediately exit again. Kind of thing, and leave everyone alone to sit and chat. So I do wonder about little things like that. Thoughts in the room while I look ahead. Voice them out loud. Eric.
Well, I did put this in the chat, but also like it is very Dr. Faustus-y kind of. But yeah, that must have been ages ago, right? Or I mean, in terms of timeline, and just sort of, yeah, I don't know. This is a weird intro to a play. I think it's sort of conjuring the demons and stuff. And I mean, we've had this before. Aside from like Dr. Faustus, there's I think it was not. Well, yeah, Misfortunes of Arthur, where you've got the ghost turning up for no apparent reason. I can speechify more if you need me to cover time.
No, it's good stuff. I mean, I think yeah, Dr. Faustus is a good point on that one. It does sort of bring up all the right sort of nods on it. Liza.
There's in it, but there's also Tamburlaine. Drepona's speech says, basically it's saying, "My lord, you seem unhappy," and saying, and it's Tamburlainian. There are a lot of quote unquote exotic place names tossed in for spice and resonance. Things like, what have our vassals, the Tartarians, besieged and sacked some of our frontier towns? Then with our army far more great than that, which Xerxes, having drunk whole rivers dry. So lots of Tartarians, Calicut earlier, Ganges, and these are names we're used to hearing, but yeah, it's interesting. It's not. This isn't so much a Turk play, although that's the name of the genre, and it does fall within that genre. But this is sort of when the great Khans ruled, there were at one point there were three Khanates: the Levant and the sort of center bit and the West. So this is kind of a, well, it's an Orientalist play indeed. That one protagonist seems to be from India, another seems to be from northern Central Asia, Persia, Mongolia, or the Mongolian Empire as it then was.
Yes, absolutely. Any more? Because I've almost found the reference, which is so annoyingly indexed that it's taken me forever to find. Eric.
I was just going to say that, like, I mean, I find it interesting how we kind of, there's the mention of tobacco, how even with tobacco now well known, the Brahmin priests brewed for Indians. And there's a part of me going, so are we going west or are we going east? Because like sort of tobacco would have come from America, right? Or I mean, my history is bad and my geography is even worse. but yeah.
Yeah, the plant is native to the America, and thank you for flagging that up, because I'd forgotten that bit, and it did pang out that the East India trading company is sort of being praised by this very Orientalist play. So there's Orientalism and colonialism, and yeah, tobacco, the plant, is native to the Americas, but that doesn't stop the colonialism, just confusing one colony for another.
Yes, and that question of geography and names for things might get the way the early modern use of names is slightly different sometimes to the way we're using them today. Eric?
My question is, okay, so the next bit, to please the tragic muse and not offend the Paphian empress, is obviously Venus. But then the queen of hell, of blood, of magic, and of marriage, is that the same person, or what's going on there? Because it seems to be quite an epic like thing of, marriage, hell, and magic and blood is, the sort of same concept. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, these are all good questions, of which I do not know the answer. But we do not have any more of the play, and possibly because of the issues raised in it, we might be glad for that. We shall see. Anyway, we're going to go to two more short pieces. These are not fragments; these are complete things in of themselves, and from slightly different periods, which is why I was struggling to find this one. So what we're doing next is a dialogue between two shepherds, Thenot and Piers, in Praise of Astrea, and Astrea is the fairly conventional term for Queen Elizabeth, or the reference to Queen Elizabeth. If you're going to reference any kind of godlike creature and connect it with the Queen, this is one of those names. So we've got two shepherds, and this might be a song. But feel free not to attempt to sing it. And this might be some sort of outdoor entertainment or some kind of entertainment that was performed for the Queen. It is entirely plausible. It is written by Mary Herbert, or Mary Sidney, Countess of Pembroke. So it is one of the few examples of women's writing that we have, and we have encountered her translation before, but this is a different work. It seems to be an original work.
And Iphigenia, did she write Iphigenia?
No, that was I should know the name, Lumley, not Joanna Lumley, Jane Lady Lumley did Iphigenia. No, Mary Sidney translated Tragedy of Antony.
Yes, and she did a bunch of translations of the Psalms, or was it her brother's translations that she finished?
Well, I think there's all sorts of debate about where the labour of some works land. I don't know off the top of my head. But yes, she certainly did a lot of writing, and it's nice to find something that is explicitly semi-dramatic, at least, in this sense, though, of course, it might be more in the music vein of things. So we have two shepherds talking to each other. We have Thenot, who is Desna, and the other one is Piers, who is Liza.
I sing divine Astrea's praise. O muses, help my wits to raise and heave my verses higher.
Thou needst the truth but plainly tell, which much I doubt thou canst not well, thou art so oft a liar.
If in my song no more I show than heaven and earth and sea do know, then truly I have spoken.
Sufficeth not no more to name, but being no less the like, the same, else laws of truth be broken.
Then say she is so good, so fair, with all the earth she may compare, not murmur self-denying.
Compare may think where likeness holds, not like to her the earth enfolds. I looked to find you lying.
Astrea sees with wisdom's sight, Astrea works by virtue's might, and jointly both do stay in her.
Nay, take from them her hand, her mind. The one is lame, the other blind. Shall still your lying stain her?
Soon as Astrea shows her face straight, every ill avoids the place, and every good aboundeth.
Nay, long before her face doth show, the last doth come, the first doth go. How loud this lie resoundeth!
Astrea is our chiefest joy, our chiefest guard against annoy, our chiefest wealth, our treasure.
Where chiefest are, there others be, to us none else but only she. When wilt thou speak in measure?
Astrea may be justly said, a field in flowery robe arrayed in season freshly springing.
That spring endures but shortest time. This never leaves Astrea's clime. Thou liest instead of singing.
As heavenly light that guides the day, right so doth shine each lovely ray that from Astrea flieth.
Nay, darkness oft that light enshrouds, Astrea's beams no dark. Nay, darkness oft that light enclouds, Astrea's beams no darkness shrouds. How loudly Thenot lieth!
Astrea rightly term I may a manly palm, a maiden bay, her verdure never dying.
Palm oft is crooked, bay is low. She still upright, still high doth grow. Good Thenot, leave thy lying.
Then Piers of friendship, tell me why my meaning true my words should lie, and strive in vain to raise her.
Words from conceit do only rise. Above conceit her honor flies, but silence naught can praise her.
Yeah, so it's a sort of praise competition.
But it's funnier than most praise competitions.
Yeah, no, I think it's got some nice wit to it.
Yeah.
You're not praising. You're lying. You're just because you're not praising enough.
I really want this to be sung by two of the sweetest voices possible. The one just singing beautiful praises, and the other one going, "You suck."
Yeah, and I wonder whether there's you know, because it's talking about singing that it steps in and out of song as well. That there are some lines that are actually not sung that they step back from singing and at times as well, especially in the retorts. I'm not sure. I'm interested. It's just, I don't think we have the music for this. I see no note that it comes with any accompanying music. It's sort of inferred that it is sung because they keep talking about singing praises. But yeah. I wonder how singy it was. Eric.
I kind of what do you call it? I kind of picture this as more of a rap where they're just pushing each other to go further, and it's like, no, you suck, mic drop.
Yeah, you suck at praising. You don't praise enough.
Yeah.
Your praise.
Also, the beginning made me think of how do you call it? Well, I'll put it in the chat. Waiting for Godot, just like sort of, you know, to people trying to amuse each other.
There's a game. It doesn't feel like it's very, especially if this was performed in front of Queen Elizabeth. You know, it's this sort of praise competition in front of the Queen. You know, and things. We don't know precisely when this was written. It sometime in the 1590s. It could have been at the beginning of the 1590s. It could have been at the end of the 1590s. By the end of the 1590s, some of the praise stuff for Elizabeth possibly starts to wear thin. But I think after however long she's been, she still quite enjoys being praised. So, yeah. Okay, any other thoughts about this little dialogue? I quite like this little dialogue. I quite like it as dialogue, though it'd be quite nice to find some accompanying, or for that matter, to find a way of rapping it. That could be quite fun. Not me. I'm not going to do that. But someone might want to do that. Someone who does that kind of thing. Go for it. Why not? It's fun. Okay, any other thoughts on that before we go on to our final thing for the session? It's a 4-person game. It's a mystery. No, we are going to do Francis' new jig. We're going to do a jig. We haven't done any jigs before. This would definitely have been sung. We have got some tunes that go with this. I am not asking anyone to sing. I am asking you to vaguely keep within the structure of the thing and play around with it and see how it goes. But we have 4 people. We have Bessie, or Bess, Francis, we've got the wife, and we've got Richard. Wife of Francis, I think. And this is the kind of thing that would have been done at the end of a show. So you go to the theatre, you see a show, and at the end of it, you'd have a comedy skit routine thing like this. Sung thing like this, or something more complex. Of course, it may also exist in the real world in other forms. And so yeah, we don't have many of these. So this is a thing. So it's semi-dramatic, It's all, at least in theory, hilarious. We'll see how that goes. And yes, there are some stage directions, therefore, to go with it. Francis New Jig between Francis a gentleman and Richard a farmer to the tune of Walsingham.
As I went to Walsingham to the shrine with speed, met I with a jolly palmer in a pilgrim's weed. Now God you save you, jolly palmer.
Welcome, Lady Gay. Oft I have sued to thee for love.
Oft have I said you nay.
My love is fixed.
And so is mine, but not on you. For to my husband whilst I live, I ever will be true.
He gave thee gold and rich array.
Which I shall buy too dear.
Naught shall you want when they say not nay.
Naught would you make me, I fear. What though you be a gentleman and have land's great store? I will be chaste, do what you can, though I live ne'er so poor.
Thy beauty rare hath wounded me, and pierced my heart.
Your foolish love doth trouble me. Pray you, sir, depart.
Then tell me, sweet, wilt thou consent unto my desire?
And if I should, then tell me, sir, what is it you require?
For to enjoy thee as my love.
Sir, you have a wife, therefore let your suit have an end.
First will I lose my life. All that I have thou shalt command.
Then my love you have.
Your meaning I well understand.
I yield to what you crave.
But tell me, sweet, when shall I enjoy my heart's delight?
I prithee, sweetheart, be not coy, even soon at night. My husband is rid 10 miles from home, money to receive. In the evening see you come.
Till then I take my leave.
Exit Francis, and just beware any B's or R's. There are character designations. I apologise for not putting them in. Exit Francis.
Thus have I rid my hands full well of my amorous love, and my sweet husband will I tell how he doth me move.
Enter Richard, Bess's husband, to the tune of the Jewish dance.
Hey down, a down, hey down, a down, down. There is never a lusty farmer in all our town that hath more cause to lead a merry life than I that am married to an honest, faithful wife.
I thank you, gentle husband. You praise me to my face.
I cry thee mercy, Bess. I knew thee not in place.
Believe me, gentle husband, if you knew as much as I, the words that you have spoken you quickly would deny. For since you went from home, a suitor have I had, who is so far in love with me that he is almost mad. He'll give me gold and silver store and money for to spend, and I have promised him, therefore, to be his loving friend.
Believe me, gentle wife, but this makes me to frown. There is no gentleman, no knight, nor lord of high renown that shall enjoy thy love, girl, though he were ne'er so good. Before he wronged my best so, and I'll spend on him my blood. And therefore, tell me who it is that doth desire thy love.
Our neighbor, Master Francis, that often did me move, to whom I gave consent his mind for to fulfill, and promised him this night that he should have his will. Nay, do not frown, good Dicky, but hear me speak my mind, for thou shalt see, I'll use him in his kind. For unto thee I will be true, so long as I do live. I'll never change thee for a new, nor once my mind so give. Go you to Mistress Frances, and this to her declare, and will her with all speed to my house to repair, where she and I'll devise some pretty knavish wile, for I have laid the plot, her husband to beguile. Make haste, I pray, and tarry not, for long will he not stay.
Fear not, I'll tell her such a tale shall make her come away.
Now best bethink thee what thou hast to do. Thy lover will come presently, and hardly will he woo. I'll teach my gentleman a trick that he may know. I am too crafty and too wise to be o'erreached so. But here he comes. Now not a word, but fall to work again.
And she sews. Enter Francis.
How now, sweetheart, at work so hard?
Aye, sir, I must take pains.
But say, my lovely sweeting, thy promise wilt thou keep? Shall I enjoy my love, the night with me to sleep?
My husband rid from home. Here safely you may stay.
And I have made my wife believe that I have rid the other way.
Go in, good sir, whate'er betide this night, and lodge with me.
The happiest night that ever I had, thy friend still will I be.
And they retire. Enter Mistress Frances with Richard to the tune of Bugle Bow. This is where it gets a bit confusing as we shift to a different printing. Second part of Toll's new jig to the tune As I Went to Walsingham. And we have the wife and Richard having a chat.
I thank you, neighbour Richard, for bringing me this news.
Nay, thank my wife that loves me so, and will not you abuse.
But see whereas she stands and waiteth our return.
You must go cool your husband's heat that so in love doth burn.
Now, Dickie, welcome home, and mistress, welcome hither. Grieve not, although you find your husband and I together, for you shall have your right, nor will I wrong you so. Then change apparel with me straight, and unto him do go.
For this your kind goodwill 1,000 thanks I give, and make account I will requite this kindness, if I live.
I hope it shall not need. Dick will not serve me so. I know he loves me not so ill arranging for to go.
No faith, my lovely Bess. First will I lose my life, before I'll break my wedlock bonds or seek to wrong my wife.
And we can infer the exit of the wife here.
Now thinks good Master Francis he hath thee in his bed, and makes account he's grafting of horns upon my head. But softly, stand aside. Now shall we know his mind, and how he would have used thee if thou hadst been so kind.
Enter Master Francis with his own wife having a mask before her face, supposing her to be Bessie, to the tune of Go From My Window.
Farewell, my love, and heart's delight, till next we meet again. Thy kindness to requite for lodging me all night. Here's £10 for thy pain, and more to show my love to thee. Wear this ring for my sake.
Without your gold or fee, you shall have more of me.
No doubt of that I make.
Then let your love continue still.
It shall till life doth end.
Your wife I greatly fear.
For her thou needest not care, so I remain thy friend.
But you'll suspect me without cause that I am false to you, and then you'll cast me off and make me but a scoff, since that I prove untrue.
Then never trust a man for my sake, if I prove so unkind.
So often have you sworn, sir, since that you were born, and soon have changed your mind.
Nor wife, nor life, nor goods, nor lands shall make me leave my love, nor any worldly treasure make me forego thy pleasure, nor once my mind remove.
But soft a while, who is yonder? Do you see my husband? Out, alas!
And yonder is my wife. Now shall we have a life? How cometh this to pass?
Come hither, gentle Bess. I charge thee, do confess what makes Master Francis here.
Good husband, pardon me. I'll tell the truth to thee.
Then speak and do not fear.
Nay, neighbour Richard, hark to me. I'll tell the truth to you.
Nay, tell it unto me, good sir, that I may see what you have here to do. But you can make no excuse to colour this abuse. This one is too great.
Good sir, I take great scorn. You should prefer me the horn.
Now I must cool this heat.
And the wife unmasks. Some of the stage prefixes, speech prefixes may be wrong in this section.
Nay, neighbour Richard, be content. Thou hast no wrong at all.
Thy wife hath done thee right, and pleasured me this night. Probably Francis, I'm guessing.
This frets me to the gall. Good wife, forgive me this offence. I do repent mine ill.
I thank you with mine heart for playing this kind part for so against your will. Nay, gentle husband, frown not so, for you have made amends. I think it is good gain to have £10 for my pain. Then let us both be friends.
Ashamed I am, and know not what to say. Good wife, forgive this crime. Alas, I do repent.
I could be content to be served so many a time.
Good neighbour Richard, be content. I'll woo thy wife no more. I have enough of this.
Then all forgiven is. I thank thee, Dick, therefore. And to thy wife I'll give this gold. I hope you'll not say no. Since I have had the pleasure, let her enjoy the treasure.
Good wife, let it be so.
I thank you, gentle mistress.
Faith, and so do I. Shall learn your own wife to know, and shoot not in the dark, for fear you miss the mark.
He hath paid for this, I trow. All women learn of me.
All men by me take heed, how you a woman trust.
Nay, women trust no men.
And if they do, how then?
There's few of them prove just. Farewell, neighbour Richard. Farewell, honest Bess. I hope we are all friends. And if you stay at home and use not thus to come, here all our quarrel ends.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah,
Girl power.
Yeah. There is a sort of yes. Someone got some loving and someone got some pain, and yeah, everything ended happily in the end, as it were. I mean, I'm sure there are some moral issues with some of this, but hey, live and let live. Eric.
So basically, they spiced up their sex life by dressing up as the neighbors. Is that the thing? So they basically did role play.
Well,
but he didn't know he was doing role play.
not less wife swapping and more costume swapping.
Yeah.
So yeah,
but in song as well.
Yes, because it's being tricked into having sex with his own wife. I mean, what? And then paying the next door neighbour for the privilege. It's sort of, it's it's an interesting plot. I'd say it's fun and it's jolly, and I think that with the right music and the way you play it to the music, I'm curious, because we were talking about rap earlier, how sung this is. Is the music to keep the rhythm going? I
think it is sung, because some of these named tunes are extant, and they're not speaky tunes. They're not tunes of little range. They're actually very beautiful, and I think this.
That's why I'm saying how sung is this? Because if you're singing a beautiful song, I'm not sure this dramatically works.
But I mean, I don't know. I like this as a sort of mini opera with presumably some dancing, lots of dancing.
I assume they do some dancing at the end. I mean, at the moment there isn't actually any dance. Well, there's some dancing. So someone does some dancing. It'll be interesting to see how enacted that is. Liza.
That is one of the parts you could dance. People could dance their attraction. People could dance their. It could work. It could work.
I'd say one of the problems is we don't really know how these things work. We don't have that many texts of this kind of thing, and we don't really have enough. I'm sure as we go on, we'll find more evidence and more stuff, but we don't really have much in the way of Elizabethan jigs. That's the problem. We only have a few, and then we have some later stuff. So, yeah, we've sort of got to infer a whole tradition. Anyway, we have one more little text to do. We are going to jump forward from the 1590s to 1614 to 17-ish. So this is This comes from a court case. It's another one of these plays that comes. We have 6 lines of this play because someone took someone to court over was it blasphemous or not. And at some point we will actually go into because we've got all the complainant stuff on it, and it's all there. So this was a satirical play performed in Kendal. It was it's by a chap called Jasper Garnet, who I think was part of the legal proceedings, and it all went a bit, wrong for him. And yeah, so we have this moment in the play where a boy who's been sort of spoken to by some clowns. You know what happens when you talk to clowns? They encourage you to do all sorts of things, and they tell the boy to look into a hellmouth, and the boy is going to describe the things what he sees there, and that's what's happening here. So, Eric, I think you are the boy here. Take it away.
Ravenscroft, far by the square. It's false landlords makes all that croaking there, and those sheep, we poor men, those whose right these by their skill would take away and make us tenants at will. And when our ancient liberties are gone, they'll poke and pull and peel us to the bare bone.
So yeah, there's
long words for a boy.
There are ravens that are a bit like landlords who pick at your bones, pick at everything. So, yeah. False landlords, they're like carrion birds. That's what they are.
I think the ravens are the metaphor is ravens, ravens ravening on sheep or worrying lambs or eating a dead sheep or doing something terrible to sheep because
yes, and the thing is, they've heard the sound from the hellmouth that sounds like ravens, and it's going, it's going, no, it's not ravens. That's not ravens down there. That's landlords. That is false landlords making all that croaking. That is nice little bit of dialogue. I'm sure it was a great play. I quite like that.
I'm just
Eric.
wondering if you could stick it at the end of like the Three Ladies of London, where you've got, I think it was Lucre who actually turns into landlady at some point, where she throws someone out of the house to, I think it was Lady Lucre who sort of kicks out her sort of sibling or someone who tries to. I can't remember the full plot anyway.
It's true. It was an old guy who'd lived in the house for ages, and she bought the house and she cranked up the rent, and so he had to go on the street and sell brooms.
Yes, and then also the person selling brooms had to also sell her dresses as well, something like that. I don't know, anyway, whatever. And besoms and all that stuff. That's what this made me think of, which is a full 30 years before this, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think questions of dishonest landlords. We've got quite a few landlord, I think, popping up in text. So we might be able to link this with something. It's nice 6 lines. Quite like them. We'll record them at some point. Do the same with them. Create an entire play around it. I'd say the actual court case may give us more data to work on, and at some point we'll go back and look at the whole thing. But it's. I just thought I'd just mark it there just to get it in there. So we've got a whole selection. I think it's fair to say, obviously, the more complete ones are the easier ones to do things with. We've done a number of fragments, which are all a bit little and tiny. But actually, even most of those, I'm just looking at them going, well, I can do something with that. I'm not so sure what to do about the Great Cham because it's sort of... It is the beginning of a play. I think you just record that and pop it on the podcast and forget about it. But whereas the Crying Christmas, I feel we can actually use that and incorporate that into a show. I could put that in the opening of a Christmas show, and with a few minor tweaks, and that'll work, and that'll be quite fun. And that's a nice way to start a show before you move on to another text. So I quite like that. Two Shepherds quite enjoyed them. They were quite nice. Any thoughts in the room about some of these fragments, Liza?
Oh, just actually, Desna had her hand up, and I've talked a lot, so let's hear Desna.
Oh, I will. Thank you, but I was going to second your idea for an opera for Francis's new jig to have the tunes and the dancing. So
I'm not saying they shouldn't have the tunes. I'm just wondering how the tunes and the actual performance function, and the kind of singing that is actually required for something like this.
it's hard to say without knowing the tunes. I mean, like obviously, covering my microphone. Obviously, Liza does know the tunes, but yeah, maybe hearing the tunes is needed. But yeah.
Oh yes, no, I think that's the next thing. Some of the tunes I think are known. Some of them may not be. But we could almost certainly infer something that would do the job. Because we do know of tunes from the period, so there's lots of options there. Tom, then Eric.
It was a nice evening. It was like the rattle bag, it was this poems and performances. That yeah, it was rattled along and was very enjoyable. Not long-winded, and quite tight. And yes, we're all fascinated by the music, I suppose.
Eric.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I mean, who doesn't want to sing the line, I thank thee, Dick, therefore?
Yeah, and I've heard people saying that, Dick isn't a thing yet. And I keep thinking, are you sure? You sure that it's not a thing yet? Because I'm fairly certain it's a thing. It seems to be a thing. So I feel that I'm leaning more in that direction. It's certainly a thing now. How big a thing Dick is, I don't know. That's entirely up to the beholder, I assume, or for that matter, the circumstances. I'm going to stop now and close the session. Unless anyone has an extra to add. Eric, are you sure?
Well, also because we were talking about how this would fit well with Dame Sirith, but then Dame Sirith is a lot before this, isn't it?
Oh, it is. And it's interesting to think how things change and things remain the same. Something from the 1590s with something that is literally, 4 or 5 centuries older. And that sort of energy is still there. Though, to be honest, there's even less consent in the Dame Sirith story. And it's actually, for the modern taste, it's a far darker story than this is. This genuinely does end in a happy ending to a degree. Any more for any more? No? Well, in that case, all that remains to thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Dick will not serve me so.